the issue of censorship and so on. And the opening question, Vanessa, is, are we all terrorists now?
Well, it's definitely looking that way. I mean, this is up at my Substack if people want to go and have a look at more detail. I talk about my detention, oh gosh, when was it now? November 2021. There have been so many. And I happened to be communicating with John Laughland the other day, and he told me that last year in October, he was also detained. John Laughland, author, historian, director of the FVD, the Forum for Democracy, the largest political party in the Netherlands with 60,000 members, was stopped as he entered the UK. He is a British citizen. He was stopped as he came in last October. And as he says in the article that he wrote on his detention, although he was told it was not a detention and therefore he didn't have the right to have access to a lawyer at the time, the act is supposedly designed, the Anti-Terrorism Act, Section 3, to allow the police to detain hostile actors who are traveling to the country to plan, prepare or carry out their hostile acts, according to the leaflet the officers gave me and me. But the Act itself says an examining officer may exercise the powers under this paragraph whether or not there are grounds for suspecting that a person is or has been engaged in hostile activity. So an act ostensibly designed to allow hostile actors to be stopped, in fact, applies indiscriminately to everyone, according to its own explicit terms. And he then says, it is certainly surprising that the powers were wielded, in my case, against a British national. Nationals should not normally be questioned in this way about their reasons for entering the territory of their own country. Absolutely correct. We're not at war with Russia, as we've said on numerous occasions. He then also says, ever since the EU announced its global human rights sanctions regime in December 2020, I have also pointed out that the EU has given itself the power to punish individuals by executive order. This is a very dangerous development. Individuals are punished under this regime without any legal procedure, no trial, and without any means of defending themselves. So much for human rights. And I have warned for 2 years now that citizens of Western states would themselves be the target of these sanctions. And this duly happened in July, when a British blogger, Graham Phillips, in the Donbass was sanctioned by the United Kingdom, which has the same system now as the EU and the US. And then if we move on quickly, Mike, to the incredible ruling, because as far as I understand, John Laughland appealed for his computer to be returned to him. It was kept by the anti-terrorist squad. The ruling by Judge Lord Menzies, the reason which has been advanced for the retention of this material is not that Mr. Laughland has been engaged in interference activity directed by or otherwise linked to the Russian state, and this is where it gets incredible. It is that he may be linked to individuals who may have been so engaged. So we are now fully in Patriot Act territory.
Indeed. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Incredible. No, I mean, just quite incredible. So basically, if you're linked to individuals who may have been so engaged, you can be picked up by the anti-terrorist squad in the UK. So in other words, you can be picked up at any time as a terrorist, basically.
And of course, this is designed to intimidate people who might want to be journalists. But what about intimidating people that might want to speak to journalists? Well, let's bring this on screen. Now, this is from September 2022. This is the European Media Freedom Act. This is the European Commission's press release on it. And the headline here is European Media Freedom Act. Commission proposes rules to protect media pluralism and independence in the EU. So think about that. They produced a piece of legislation which most people in the general public would think this is good. This is about protecting the media. It's all fantastic, keeps the media independent and so on. But many people have been commenting on this since it was announced. And this is Investigate Europe. Secrets of the Council is their sort of tagline for it. EU governments plan blank check to spy on journalists. Because, Vanessa, this is about the EU wanting to allow state surveillance of journalists and their interlocutors, as they say in this article, including the use of spyware if security authorities deem it necessary?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So the confidentiality of journalistic sources goes out of the window, basically. And as it says here, draft EU plans to allow spying on journalists are dangerous, warn critics. The move to allow spyware to be placed on reporters' phones would have a chilling effect, say media experts. Well, yes, of course it would. And of course, that's what the state actually wants, to chill any dissident journalists or sources. On Wednesday, the European Council, which represents the governments of EU member states, published a draft of the European Media Freedom Act that would allow spyware to be placed on journalists' phones if a national government thought it necessary. Well, as we're already in danger of being deemed terrorists if we have any remote connection to somebody who might also be deemed a terrorist or engaged in, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, 1 year ago, Pegasus spyware was found on journalists' phones. French intelligence confirms. If you just move on quickly, because it says French intelligence have confirmed that Pegasus spyware has been found on the phones of 3 journalists, including a senior member of staff at the country's international TV station France 24. Forbidden Stories, Paris-based non-profit media organization, and Amnesty International had access to a leaked list of 50,000 numbers that it is believed have been identified as those of people of interest by clients of Israeli firm NSO Group since 2016 and shared access with their media partners. So this is something that has to a degree been already going on. But of course, what the EU draft legislation threatens is that it becomes the norm to spy on journalists and on journalist sources.
Yes, indeed. And just to end off this section on censorship, as it were, let's bring Thierry Breton on screen. He's the EU Commissioner for Internal Markets, because he's basically issued a threat against Twitter at the moment. Now, everybody knows that Twitter has effectively lifted its previous censorship regime, but Breton being quite threatening. So he's now saying that if the technology to moderate dangerous content, as he describes it as dangerous content, is not ready, they need to have enough resources to match the gap. So if they're not prepared to install mechanisms that prevent certain types of content being uploaded to Twitter in the first place, then he's saying they absolutely need to put people and human beings in place to match what that software would do. I spoke on this specific topic with Elon Musk. Breton said, I'm not here to tell the company what they have to do. I'm the regulator and have to tell them what is the law. Our new rules will protect users online, guarantee freedom of expression, and open up new opportunities for companies. So again, we see these forked-tongue words here where, in the name of keeping people safe online, guaranteeing freedom of expression, we're going to shut down freedom of expression and prevent certain people from saying anything. Well, that's the position of Thierry Breton, and what can we say? The dictatorship rolls on apace, and that's absolutely clear. Now, Mark, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that. I want to come back to to the rest of your report on the Ukrainian Recovery Conference in a second. But have you got any thoughts on this censorship story we've just discussed?
Yeah, they largely match yours, Mike. I'll kind of stand on your shoulders here. When they talk about freedom for the press and all that, and then at the same time they want to put, surveillance gadgetry on people's phones, it's Orwellian to the core. I mean, obviously, it's all to protect the same old media narrative that we've had forever, and they can't let that narrative go, because if they don't do these measures and they lose the narrative, they lose it all. So they're trying to sandbag this so they don't get into something that they cannot retrieve, that they cannot reverse. That's why they're going so drastic and so Orwellian, in my estimation.
Yes, indeed. Now,